think of Rolls-Royce with 30,000 employees. All the graduates and interns would be under me. So I'd be organizing them in terms of extra things they could be doing, etc. So I stepped into kind of a leadership role quite early in terms of outside my job. And then in my job, I was doing quite well. Like I was getting top marks, like my managers were like, yeah, you're doing great. But I was itchy. I was very itchy, but I didn't know what I was itchy for. Like I knew I wanted to do something of my own, but I just didn't know how. One thing that fundraising does for you is that it stretches out your runway, which means you can fail for longer, right? As a founder, you're never gonna get it right first time, second time, third time, even 50th time. Fundraising is to essentially buffer your failures. And in the UK, the system is so comfortable. It's free healthcare, it's free education. It's a pension without you lifting a finger. You're almost guaranteed to live until 90 below a certain wage level. That's guaranteed. If you want to cross that threshold, you need to start taking risks, actual risks, right? So I decided to bet on myself. Who else are you going to bet on, if not yourself?
Hello everyone and welcome to yet another episode of the After Hours in partnership with Tanqueray Africa. My name is Alice Kanjeje, your lovely host, and today we are at the lovely Art Cafe Gastro Bar here in Westlands. If you've been watching our previous After Hours episodes, then you will know that we have been using this wonderful, amazing space to have this series going. They have the best drinks and they have the best Tanqueray-based cocktails. I'm the one, Mindo Nakusho. I'm telling you the secret is that the best cocktails in town are found here and they're Tanqueray-based. So I am having a basic gin and tonic. What are you having?
I'm having a Gastro Colin.
Look no further if you're trying to have an amazing time with your friends. I think Gastro Bar and Tanqueray is a recipe for success. And speaking of success, that is what we're going to get into today. Today we are having the lovely Michelle Watiki join us on the platform. Now, Michelle is no stranger. Michelle has actually been with us on the Jasirian Network Summit panel discussion that we had. But now it was time for us to invite her to come and we can have some bit of insight on her career journey as well as what she's doing at Dark Analytics. So Michelle, thank you so much for gracing my invite and joining us on the After Hours.
Thank you so much for having me. Super excited to share more about myself.
Amazing. So maybe you can start by introducing yourself to our audience.
Awesome. So my name is Michelle Watiki and I am a co-founder and COO at Dark. So quick brief about my background. So I'm actually an engineer by background. I did chemical engineering for my bachelor's and my master's. I then did a stint in corporate. So I was a corporate babe for a number of years. Before packing my bags, leaving the UK, as you can tell, my accent not from around here. Packing my bags and moving from the UK to Nairobi to essentially take on my role full-time at Dark.
Wow. Okay. Interesting career trajectory. I think I want to learn more about that pivot. Or is it a pivot from chemical engineering to now being a founder and entrepreneur with building Dark Analytics? So maybe you can just take it slightly back in where your journey began.
Yeah, so I always start this story by telling everyone that I knew what I wanted to be when I was 16 years old.
Yes.
At high school. So I was doing my GCSEs at the time and I was essentially picking which A-levels I do. And in the UK, what A-levels you pick essentially decides what university degree you will be doing. So I was in an economics class and my teacher at the time had brought up a list of all the top paying professionals, professional jobs. And at the top of the list, you had investment banker. But I was kind of put off by that because, really long working hours, right? And I live a soft life. And I think second on the list was lawyer, but I hated essays and I wasn't a fan of English. Third on the list was doctor. I failed biology, so I didn't even do it as a GCSE, let alone an A-level. And then fourth on the list was engineer. And then I asked my teacher, okay, so what kind of engineering can I do essentially? And he said to me, so there's different types of engineers, but the one that gets paid the most is chemical engineers. So I decided to pick my A-levels, which was chemistry, maths, further maths and physics. And that
Maths
is
and further maths.
Maths, yes, there is a maths and there's a further maths. Yeah, that's like advanced maths.
You were in love.
At that point I was like, let me have it. I will take all of it, whatever it takes to get my dream job,
Completely
right?
opposite, because I'm the English, the essays, I would have written them down.
Oh, you
compared
cannot
to
get me
maths.
to write essays, literally. So all of my subjects were STEM-based. And then I picked those subjects, which was great because it meant that I knew I could do engineering at university, but then I wanted to get into a top uni. So what I started doing was I joined lots of different summer schools, and those summer schools were essentially, you would spend a week at the university and spend time there as if you were an engineering student. So I got a real taste for, you know, what I'd be doing in my future, the kind of jobs I'd get. I'd meet like lecturers, I'd meet alumni, and that just kind of drove me to continue my journey. Because at the time, my journey was climb the corporate ladder
Yes.
and earn a lot of money. Then I pivoted.
Okay, and I think you were already doing that as well when you finished uni. Okay, so you did your undergrad in chemical engineering
Yes.
as well. Did you manage to get into one of the schools that you were envisioning yourself in?
Unfortunately, I didn't. So I had one of my first big hiccups in my career / education journey where I wasn't as focused during my A-levels. I kind of got distracted. And I would actually say that A-levels in the UK are probably harder than a university degree. They are very, very intense.
Yeah.
They're very kind of advanced, and the jump between finishing high school and college is insane.
Yeah.
So I was one of those students who were academically gifted until I sat an exam. And then it was like, oops, didn't study enough. So I went through a process in the UK called clearing, which is what happens when all the universities that give you offers then decline you because you didn't meet the offer. So results day was a very, I want to say I've healed from it.
Yeah.
But I still feel
I can
a bit.
feel it in your spirit
I
that
can still,
you're
when I
still
talk about it, I'm
settling.
just a bit like, I mean, I still did okay, but it would have been nice.
Yeah.
So I ended up going to a university which wasn't on any of my options. It wasn't, okay, I wanted to get into like a top 5 or top 10. I got into a top 30, which is still quite good.
Yes.
But when you have such high expectations for yourself, falling short of them obviously takes a hit on you. So I ended up at Aston University in Birmingham, and that's where I did my undergrad, and then I kind of redeemed myself with my postgraduate masters. I got into a really good master's program, which was fully paid for. So I got a full scholarship for that. Yeah, so I didn't pay a penny for that.
Amazing. Okay, and so within this period between your undergrad and masters, did you do them continuously, or did you now get into the career world?
Yeah, so I was a pandemic baby, well, pandemic student. So I actually sat my dissertation for my bachelor's and exams during the pandemic. So all my lecturers ghosted me for 6 months, but I still had to write my exams. It was insane.
Yes.
And then a lot of people's job offers got withdrawn during that summer. I was quite lucky where I had already started interning at Rolls-Royce. During the pandemic, they didn't have any jobs available, but it meant that I could just go on and do my master's and then wait for the pandemic to clear up a bit and then come back the following year. So I finished in July. I actually finished in July. I didn't. I finished September. And then I started my master's like a week after.
That is insane.
It was literally back to back. And then my master's I finished in September, and I started my job in September.
That is insane.
Yeah, it was.
So you've not really had any break to kind of, or rather, I would say, I mean, which is based on, you've mentioned that you're a type A personality, things very structured and kind of knowing how you're going to do it and when you're going to pursue that. I mean, does that give you a bit of anxiety to keep money? Okay, maybe I'll ask that question. I'm going to ask that a bit later after we get into that. Okay, so now after you've mentioned that you got an internship at Rolls-Royce. Was this while you were right after your master's or while you were doing your master's?
So,
and how did you even get an internship at Rolls-Royce, and what was the job hunting process like for you?
yeah, my story is quite unique, right? So internships are really hard to come by wherever you apply for them, right? Because you have so many students that apply for them. But if you get an internship and you manage to do well, the company is more likely to keep you because it will cost them more money to recruit someone else that's fresh off the bat. And they know you at that point, right? So I started applying for internships because it was actually part of my degree. So my degree was a bachelor's in engineering with an industrial placement year. So kind of similar to how you do attachments here in Kenya. So we get graded for it. So I actually started applying for internships, and I remember my first 100 applications was just rejection.
100.
I'd press submit and then I'd get an email, and it's unfortunately
First 100.
Unfortunately, we have decided to not proceed with your. It was insane, right? So then I decided to think outside the box.
Yeah.
So at the time, I was actually the president of the African Caribbean Society. So think of it as like a group of Black people that used to come together. We used to party together, study together, etc. And then it was a formal recognized society in the university. So the uni used to give us money to host events.
Nice.
So I ran for presidency, got president, and then I launched what was like a career networking department within the society.
Nice.
And then I brought in all the big companies, right? Because I said to everyone, hey guys, it's great that you party, but we need jobs after this degree.
Yeah.
We actually need to pay.
lock in.
We need to pay this fees back. So I brought in like KPMG, I brought in EY. I had actually already interned at EY.
Nice.
But because I interned at EY, I decided financial services was not for me. So then I actually brought in
I thought you should have known that from investment banking.
I mean, I tried.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, let me just in case.
try.
I was like, no,
Yeah.
now I know it's not for me. So I actually brought in Rolls-Royce to one of our university events. Through that, I actually got connected with the global head of HR.
Nice.
And she kind of plugged me through the process. Like, we got along so well. So she supports, because the application process is brutal. You fill out like your name, your address, blah, 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 answer some questions. And then they filter you out based on your questions. If you have typos, grammar errors, even if you put like that you didn't do a certain kind of work experience, you would get filtered out. After that, you would then go through like a 3-stage screening process, which finishes off with a group assessment day where you go into the office for the whole day and do activities, and they're just there like marking, you know, like how well you're drinking your tea, how well you're speaking to
Quite
people.
different than how jobs are done here. Well, the ones that I've interacted
It's
with.
insane.
Yeah.
It's not your bog standard kind of CV interview.
Yeah.
It's like a whole, you have to do numerical tests, literacy tests.
Wow.
You have to do logical reasoning tests, which is like you have to play a game. It's like a gamified version of like pick this ball or
And
pick
in the
these
process
colours.
of doing interviews, you're kind of also feeling like, what are the chances I'm even going to get this
You
job?
know, and you still have to submit your deadlines.
Yes.
You still have to have a social life.
Yeah.
So any help you could get would be amazing.
Yes.
So I had applied to Rolls-Royce because the global head of HR was like, hey Michelle, really like you should apply. By the time I got to the final assessment stage, which is 1-to-1, because you don't see anyone until the end.
Yes.
All of it is just, it's a computer rating you, essentially, right?
Yeah.
So when it got to the final stage, she gave me so many tips. She sent me like a document, which was like, this is how you do this is how you do that, this is how you do the technical interview, this is how you do your situational interview. And then I got my internship.
Would you say that could a lesson on connections could be picked out of that and being strategic about them? Because you mentioned that, okay, yes, already in your mind you envision that, you know, there's got something that's going to come out of you inviting these guys into the for the club, for an event. So maybe subconsciously you were already preparing for like connections, but also just in general, being able to be in that in the spaces is one thing, but being able to actually maneuver through them, and you never know who you're speaking to. So I just wanted you to speak slightly on connections bit. On
that was my first ever actual interaction of the power of networking.
Yes.
The power of knowing the right people. And after I got that opportunity, I decided to take that skill and even do it within the company, right? To get the best placements, to get good grades from your managers, to even like get promoted into roles that you wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I didn't actually realize that I was actually quite good at making people like me or getting people to like me, you know?
Yeah.
I was quite good at speaking to people. My interpersonal skills were kind of better than average. I didn't know it at the time until like down the line.
Yeah.
And it's helped me so much.
Yeah.
With Duck, like getting customers, investors especially, because people always bet on you as a person, not necessarily the idea. The ideas are nice to have.
I think so too. I think everybody can have a great business idea, but it takes a lot to now make it happen.
Absolutely.
And part of that, a big part of that puzzle is networking.
Yeah.
And so back into the conversation, you're at Rolls-Royce, you've gotten the job and the opportunity. How was that experience? And then did you climb up the corporate ladder there? Or did you go have another work experience? I want to see how that connects to you then shifting your mindset and thinking about entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so I was actually in Rolls-Royce for all of my corporate experience.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons was because Rolls-Royce is a huge engineering company. There's not many other companies that are on its level.
Yeah.
And in terms of, so I actually joined as an intern. So I was a year-long intern. And then I managed to convert that into a summer internship back to back. So I said to them, hey, can I stay another 4 months? And they were like, why not? Right?
Yeah.
And there was like 20,000 other applications, but they
Yeah.
kept me.
Yeah.
And I managed to move from one side of the company. So Rolls-Royce is split into like lots of other tiny companies. So I moved from the aerospace business into the defense business, which is mostly unheard of, right?
Yeah.
But I got that through HR. I called HR and I was like, I don't like planes. I'm a
Yeah.
chemical engineer. I don't know what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
And they were like, maybe you do well in the defense side, the nuclear side of things, right? So,
That's intense.
oh yeah, it was crazy. I went from a mechanical engineering internship now to a nuclear engineering internship. After I did the summer, which was about 3-4 months, I went and did my master's. And then about 4 months into my master's, I'd already had a job offer for a trainee scheme.
Wow.
So I was just sleeping and doing my assignments. Everyone else was applying for jobs. I
Yeah.
could not relate.
Yeah.
I could not relate. And it was tough. This was
tough.
2021. All the companies had shut down and they only just started picking back up again.
Yes.
But I already had a role waiting for me for the
Yeah.
following year.
Yeah.
So I joined my graduate trainee scheme and it was amazing because trainee schemes are really great because you get to move around different departments. You get to figure out what kind of person you are. Do you like working from home? Do you like being in the office? I was working in a factory, like literally hard hat, overalls. And I was like, oh, I can't do my nails this week because I'm in the factory. They're gonna break.
Yeah.
You know, I can't find the right size overalls. That was like my day-to-day issues that I was
Would you
going
say
through.
that? Sorry for
No worries,
cutting
no
you
worries.
short, but would you say that consistently having to work and then balancing like school, and then there's COVID going on, what was how were you able to push through? Like, what was the mental aspect of things for you? Were you able to manage that? I mean, it's difficult, but I just want to know where your headspace was at that time.
It was actually so hard. Like, it was tough, right? And a side note, so I like to mix my personal and career goals because for me, I'm so much in my career that they're kind of 1 and 2. So my ambition has always been to buy a house, right? And I knew that if I got a well-paying job, I could get in the property ladder, which is really hard to in the UK. The average property owner is about 32 years old. So during my master's, I had worked in the hospital as a healthcare assistant for a year. And I had people looking at me like, why are you doing this? You're an engineer, like why are you working there? But it was for money because there was no jobs. When I got to Rolls-Royce, I actually already had the money to buy a house, right?
Wow.
So my graduate trainee scheme was mostly coming into work, learning, and then outside of it, it was doing what I'm really passionate about, which was at the time investing.
Yes.
Like I was like, this is my goal. I want to make money, but what am I going to use the money for? A house. So everything was kind of ordered in that step. And then I completed on my house about 8 months after I graduated.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I was 24, which seems
That
insane.
is insane.
Yeah.
Michelle.
Initially, it's crazy. It was a crazy experience. It was buying a house post-pandemic as a single black female homeowner, and because where Rolls-Royce is a very kind of white town, right? So the banks were like, okay, madam, who are you applying with? You're single? Okay. And then what do you do again? And what, like they questioned my background consistently. But I think that's always pushed me. Like when someone tells me no, I'm like, hold this space, watch this space. I'm going to show you how I'm going to do it. So yes, I achieved that at 24. And then I stayed at Rolls-Royce, finished my graduate program. And then my itch came back. What's my next goal?
What's your next move?
What is my next move? What am I going to do next?
Did you feel satisfied that you checked off that goal, or did it feel like you were checking just something off your list?
What I think what most people don't tell you is when you reach your goals, it's like meeting your idol. It's very underwhelming.
Like, this is what I was working for anyway. Finally, you're here.
It's like the journey was like years and years in the making.
Yeah.
When you get there, you're like, so this is it. I got the keys to an empty house that had no heating in the middle of winter. House was damn cold. I was like, please take it back.
Yeah.
But first of all, please take it back. I need heating.
Yeah.
And then my next challenge after that was furnishing the house. I didn't furnish it for 18 months because I wanted to travel. I was tired. I think I had burnout at that point. I had been so like, I have a goal. And then when I got it, I was like, okay, let me
Yeah.
have a rest for a bit.
Yeah.
But during that rest, I started getting very itchy for what is my next step in my career. And Rolls-Royce had this like amazing career program where you could like get promoted and,
Yeah.
you know, reach exec level.
Yeah.
Then I think what most people don't talk about is the glass ceiling outside of Africa in the West of being black.
Yeah, I think I was getting this from the conversation we had in the panel discussion. You guys describing that when you're climbing consistently in the corporate ladder. Yeah, you can tell us a bit more about that.
Oh, it's tough. It's very like proficiency based at the start. So at the start, you get a checklist of these are the things you need to do to become a chartered engineer, which is a registered engineer, right? And then after you get that, you're like, oh, okay, what's next? And then you start realizing that, you remember when I said networking and relationships comes into play, right?
Yeah.
So at the time, I had actually become a bit of a poster child for Rolls-Royce. If you go on their website, you'll see all my videos.
What do you mean, poster child? Michelle, maybe we need to know how intensely
They were
your
like
work
calling me
was.
up, like, hey, we're doing a promo video, we need your face, because they had launched a whole
Is it 'cause you're
diversity. Of course, it's because I'm black. They had launched like a whole diversity campaign, and they put so much budget to it. But then they looked in between their stuff and they were like, there's only like 5 black women.
Yeah.
But don't worry, we're going to put you on everything.
Yeah.
We're going to put you on everything, right? So there was a girl before me.
It's almost like it's supposed to be like a good thing for you to get the opportunity to be featured.
I always say a door open is a door open. How it's opened is none of my business. I will take it, I will run with it. I will not say because of this I'm not going to because of my pride.
Yeah.
No, it's like it's an opportunity.
I like that.
Right? And at the time I even had some of my old school friends who were like white males who were like, oh, diversity hire, right? And I was like, I get paid more than you though. Right? Because I'm where they would like to be, you know, because I am where they would like to be.
She said period.
Girl, please, you know, I don't play with my paycheck. So I was doing campaigns for them, I was doing videos, I was doing interviews.
Yeah.
I actually ran their, what was it called? It was their graduate and internship society. So think of Rolls-Royce with 30,000 employees. All the graduates and interns would be under me. So I'd be organizing them in terms of extra things they could be doing, etc. So I stepped into kind of a leadership role quite early in terms of outside my job. And then in my job, I was doing quite well. Like I was getting top marks. Like my managers were like, yeah, you're doing great, you're doing great. But I was itchy. I was very itchy. But I didn't know what I was itchy for. Like I knew I wanted to do something of my own, but I just didn't know how. Like, do I start a business in the UK, which is very hard, by the way. It's not that straightforward. Or do I look elsewhere? And then I started looking at where the grass was greener, which was what I've always wanted to do, which was to go back home.
That feels like so ironic for you to say, which is because people don't think that this is where the grass is greener.
I know.
Yeah, proceed.
I always say it's perspective.
Yeah.
Your grass is never greener if you're standing on it. It just will never be. It will always be somewhere else, right? So I know lots of people that come to the UK, they do 5-10 years, and then going back home is the goal. My parents moved to the UK in 2002, and their generation of Kenyans that migrated have been trying to come back home. And some have trialed and most have failed, and they've run back to the UK, right? And they came from a different kind of Kenya. And that to me justifies you're never ever going to be happy with where you are, and that's okay. That's drive, that's passion, that's you wanting more for yourself, and there's nothing wrong with that. So yeah, I started looking for jobs in Kenya. I started looking at the UN, no taxes. I started looking at startups as well. At the time, I had a passion for power, energy, sustainability.
Yeah.
So I was looking at agri-tech, I was looking at climate tech startups. I used to like DM them, they used to ignore me. So I was be like, okay, it's fine, ignore me guys, it's okay. And then I kind of reached the end of my graduate program in Rolls-Royce, and I actually left early. That's how itchy I was. I left my graduate program early. I said it's enough. I'm done learning. I need to now
be on the ground.
Execute.
So you left without starting dark yet, but you knew you wanted to start something.
Right?
Didn't.
Oh no. So I left my graduate program and entered a full-time position. So the graduate program is like a 2-year program. I did I did like 18 months.
Yeah.
I went into full-time because I thought the itch was not, because when you're a graduate trainee, you're kind of coddled.
You're not there,
You're not part of their budget,
Yeah.
number one.
Yeah.
They give you like side tasks.
Yeah.
You're like more than nice to have,
Yeah.
right? But I wanted to be in the thick of things. I wanted
Yes.
to help,
Yeah.
drive revenue and,
Yeah.
manage stakeholders, or so I thought. So left my graduate program after 18 months and then joined a full-time role. Did that for about 8 to 9 months, but the itch was not going away. Like, it wasn't going away.
Could you describe what the itch was?
The itch was, I have this career path laid out for me, but I see a glass ceiling, right? And for me to get through that glass ceiling, I know I will have to move hell and high water. How do I become not a black woman? How do I wake up and become a white male to make my life easier in engineering? Like, I can't. And I did everything. I sat on a board of a huge charity, right? It was a multi-million-pound STEM charity, and I was the youngest board member. I was doing talks, I was speaking to politicians, I was doing the most. But the glass ceiling was still there.
Yeah.
Like, I could see that I could only go so far, right? As a black female, I could see how that would hinder my career. And I'm someone who, I don't like having limitations. I don't like having someone to tell me no. And the no isn't because of my ability, it's because of something that's out of my
Out of your
control.
control.
Exactly. So the itch for me was, that kind of made the itch worse. But the itch has always been 9 to 5 is not right for me. And I knew that when I started my first first side hustle at 16. I used to come to Kenya. I would buy like waist beads and anklets and then sell it back to my friends. I'd buy them for like 400 bob and I'd sell them for like £20. That's like 3,000 to 4,000.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and I do that in the corridors of my school up until my mum found out.
For those listening, if you're looking for business ideas.
That was me
Yeah.
at 16, right?
Yeah.
Come in December, sell things. And then my second business was makeup. So I got to Kenya and I realized that makeup hadn't yet penetrated like your drugstore, Maybelline's, L'Oreal's.
Yeah.
This was 2014. So before they had actually had a proper presence in Kenya, right? And I was like, oh, why don't I just, instead of taking stuff from Kenya to the UK, why don't I take stuff from the UK to Kenya? So there used to be websites in the UK that used to sell makeup that was like rejected for some reason, like the seal was broken or it was a sample. I used to buy them for cheap, box them up, sell them in Kenya.
You already had a mindset going.
I mean, I was making money. I didn't even know what for. I didn't even
Yeah.
know. My parents have always worked. So for me, working was just in me. It was like, I can't just sit and watch TV. So I did that. So first business 16, first side hustle 16, second side hustle 18 before uni. But then I started junior, I couldn't sustain it. But I loved the flexibility. I loved the freedom it gave me to problem solve. And I had a really good knack for spotting pressing problems. Because I promise you, if I had stuck with the makeup problem, I'll be competing with Lintons. I've said it here. I have said it here.
You would have definitely been successful if you did makeup. Or
that was
any
like
other
2014. That was like when Lintons had first started.
You would have had like multiple branches going on.
But it was only because, again, I was young. I didn't
Yeah.
know what I was doing at the time. So that itch did not leave me.
Yeah.
It became more apparent when one path in my life, I saw roadblocks that
Yes.
I could not push. Or I could push, but I would probably
would
die
take a lot
trying. It would take a
for you to
lot.
do
It
that.
would take me years. And it had nothing to do with what I could bring to the table. It was to do with something that is beyond me. People's perception of me is not my
can't
business.
control
And
that.
I stopped internalizing that. I had a few you get a lot of microaggressions in the office. You get a lot of, I don't want to say kind of outright racism. British people are very like polite, so it's not outright. But there's still that, you can tell this isn't really your culture.
Yeah.
And I had been in the UK since I was very young, but still I wasn't accepted.
Yeah. As you get older, it becomes more apparent.
It becomes
to
more
you.
apparent. Your
Yeah.
parents can only hide so much from
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
culturally.
Yeah.
So I decided I'm going to become a citizen of the world and move out and go do things in different countries and not be limited by what people tell me I should do, which was uni, corporate job, climb the career, get your pension,
That's it.
retire. That's the career
Linear.
path for most people. Yeah.
Sorry. I was getting lost in the conversation. I'm even sat like,
I got all the tea.
Okay, so you don't want to be tied. Tell me how the conception of Duck came to play.
So I met my co-founder, and my co-founder just ignited that fire in me. And I always say that's the best way to go about it. It's very hard to have an idea and find co-founders. So I'm sure he had a hard time, but to find a co-founder who gives you something to believe in, the best experience ever.
Yes.
So I had started looking for jobs elsewhere. I had actually on offer to go to McKinsey because engineering was very rigid, but consultancy was a bit better because you get performance bonuses, which is based on what you do. Engineering, you don't get bonuses based on what you do. It's very minimal. It's just you have to show up every day and do something. Consulting, you get paid based on your output. And I decided I'm an output-driven worker. It's really key to actually figure out what kind of worker you are. Early on.
Can you give us a bit of insight on the types that you know?
Yeah, so we actually did this as part of our graduate trainee program where we went through our personality types, ENTJ, ENTP, etc. And I'm a very empathetic worker. I am more of a people person. I'm really good at managing people, getting the best out of people. And what motivates me is my doing. So in terms of a salary, what that would look like is if you offered me revenue share, I would do amazing because now I have skin in the game. But you have other kinds of workers whom are purely motivated by stability. So you give them a constant salary, you give them working hours, and they will stick to it, and you will get the most out of them. If you give them a revenue share, it won't work because that is not their worker type, right? So I did some digging and I got to kind of find myself, know myself, what motivates me to work. And I decided outcome motivates me to work. It's not just bum on a seat, which there's nothing wrong with that, but it's actually what I put in is what I get out, right? Yeah. So I had an offer to go to McKinsey, but I sidelined it, which sounds crazy. McKinsey's amazing at the time, and that was my next step for me, was moving to consultancy. But then what I actually wanted to do was to go from engineering, consultancy, MBA, and then start a business. Because the engineer in me was I need to know more about running businesses before I run my own business. Yeah. So I need to read about it. But then when I sat down and really thought about it, and when I met my co-founder, he was like, no, the only way you can know how to start a business is to start a business. I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. I was like, oh my God, that is insane. What do you mean start my own business? That's crazy. That's crazy. That's what you mean. And when you're in the corporate world, you are taught how to work. You're not taught how to build, how to start, how to create. So when he said that, I was like, oh my God, this man is so wise. Oh my God, wow, this is profound knowledge. Yeah. And that's when I decided to sideline the McKinsey job. And then it just so happened that at the time I was going through some difficulties at work. And I wanted to take a break anyway. And my break was leading me to Kenya. I wasn't gonna break in the UK where it's cold and depressing and rainy. I was gonna go to Kenya for a few months. So met up with, he was my co-founder at the time, but met up with him.
Do you want to mention his name?
Alex Mativo. shout out to Alex Mativo. Lol. So met up with him a number of times, got to know him, and he hadn't even started Duck yet. So he was working on a previous business of his called Nanasi. And what Nanasi did was they created point of sale systems for restaurants and small businesses, SMEs. And he worked with really great businesses around Nairobi, all the really cool bougie restaurants you see. But then he hit the problem that many startup founders hit in Africa, I guess, is when you target SMEs, you have to always remind yourself that the margins will be very low, right? Because they themselves are struggling to get by. And if you take money out of their bottom line, how are you going to sustain yourself, right? And you spend so much time acquiring these SMEs that the CAC, the customer acquisition cost, does not make sense. You're charging $30 for a SaaS product that took you 2 months to sign. Is it going to cover your costs? It's not adding up, right? Unless you get lots of funding. That's the only way to kind of beat that bottom. Either you get lots of funding or you just don't take a salary for 5 years plus, right? And that's a problem that a lot of founders have at the moment. So Nanasi for him wasn't making sense. And also his customers said to him, hey Alex, we love the fact that you're helping us manage our systems with your points of sales, right? You're helping us integrate payments and all that great stuff. But actually, as a restaurant, I want to know how much to price my happy hour at. I want to know how much I should be charging my meals at. Can you give me that information? Then Alex was like, that's the face he made. He was like, Actually, that data sits within the point of sale. But he'd have to clean the data, transform it, put it on a dashboard, etc. So instead of doing it as an additional service, which by the way would take so much of his time and effort and need more money, he decided, screw this, I'm going to start Duck, because this is a need that all my customers, it's like it's a more painful problem than what I'm solving for them. You know, it doesn't make sense for me to keep solving for POSs. It makes sense for me to focus on the data. So me being me with my process engineering mind, I was like, I know how you can map this out end to end. I know how you can deliver this. I know how you can, you know, essentially deliver this business operationally. I'm not a starter, I'm an operator. I like to always tell people. I started by accident, but it was very hard. But my expertise lies in operations because that was my corporate background. I know processes, I know how to standardize things, I know how to talk corporate and deliver corporate. And he decided, actually, not only was he gonna do data, he wasn't gonna do SMEs. Why? They're not paying a lot of money.
You can't get consistent
income. And obviously we had just come off the back of the crazy funding post-pandemic high. So we were entering funding winter. So he said, you know, I'm not going to be able to raise enough either, which means I need customers that have a larger lifetime, a larger LTV. So he says, we're going to do enterprise. We're going to get all the big brands. And I remember looking at him like, you're crazy. How are we supposed to get Unilever? How are we supposed to get Quick Marts and you know, and a year later, here we are. And that's who we work with. We work with enterprise brands and enterprise supermarkets. And it is absolutely worth the time. It has its downsides, but I would honestly say that if we had taken the SME route, it would have been a struggle.
So you're telling me you guys didn't raise, you guys bootstrapped and got to profit, or did you have angel investors?
So, okay, I always tell people profit is a funny thing because profit is based off how much your outgoings are. And if the outgoings are very low, it's very easy to get profit, right? You can hit profitability at any point of a business, but the whole point is you hit profitability at a at higher revenues, right? In the millions, etc. And if I can say right now, are we at profitability? Yeah, we are, because our outgoings are much lower than what we charge our customers. But we wouldn't declare that because the revenue is still quite small, right? So what we started doing was we first of all validated the need, and we found out that large brands were already spending a ton of money trying to solve this problem. So we said, okay, if we solve it for them, that means they'll give us a lot of money, right? Makes sense. And then we decided to also essentially start ourselves, right? I had some cash, you had some cash, kind of bootstrapped for a little bit. And luckily enough, we actually got into Techstars after 6 months of selling the business, which was awesome because fundraising is a full-time job.
It is.
Alex had fundraised before. I'd never fundraised. Nanasi was a VC-backed venture, so he had already gone through the turmoils of fundraising. So I was busy executing. He was like throwing out applications, and then we landed Techstars, which was awesome. Because I think one thing that fundraising does for you is that it stretches out your runway. Which means you can fail for longer, right? As a founder, you're never going to get it right first time, second time, third time, even 50th time. Fundraising is to essentially buffer your failures, right? It's to buffer the wrong people that you hire. It's to buffer the wrong business model that you're going to put in. It's to buffer your customers churning, right? And it helps give you that time to figure out the right combination of things. You can do it bootstrapped. It will take you 5 times longer. Right?
That's true.
It would take you 5 times longer. So you have to always ask yourself, what's the cost benefit of analysis of doing less operations and fundraising so that I can have a longer runway? But if you fail to fundraise, you might also run out of money. So it's like you're juggling.
It's like a in-between. But what is clear is that if you want to be successful in the business, at some point you need to have a bit of fundraising.
You need capital.
You need capital.
Fundraising can be from anyone, can be from anywhere. Whether you get a job, a side hustle to fund that business. Cash is king. Whether it's a startup or you're selling something on the streets, you need capital to buffer things. Last year, the shilling tanked, which means if you did not have enough capital, your business was wiped out because of currency fluctuations. If you run any kind of business, you need money as a buffer because
Yeah.
as humans, you're not going to get it right first time,
Yeah.
right? But you bet on yourself to keep going until you finally get it right.
Yeah.
So the Techstars funding was great because it gave us a longer runway.
Yes.
But I decided to move before we got that, right? I had already put my notice. I'd already started working my notice period.
I'm even forgetting
I-
we had the whole
Yeah,
Rolls-Royce
literally.
thing going
I was
on.
at Rolls-Royce. I'd handed in my notice, and we were already.
Was this last year?
Yeah, it was last year. This was last year, July.
This was last year because I remember meeting you at Jasiri and you kind of saying you're moving to Nairobi full time.
Yeah, literally. So this was last. Oh no, Jasiri was December.
This was December.
So I'd already moved.
Yeah,
Like a few months before that,
Okay,
but
wow.
yeah. So last year, July, I had put in my notice. I was packing my bags. I was moving to Kenya, whether I liked it or not. I was going, right? We got our offer for Techstars the day I landed in Kenya.
Wow. So it's just following, there's something about following your intuition and the itch
You have
that-
to. You actually have to.
that, I was talking to someone right before you came in, or rather one of my guests, James, he's in the gaming industry. And one of the things that he was saying was trying to tell me on the side was you need to follow sort of your conviction and, have a balance between gratitude of what's happening and uncertainty of what's happening, but conviction that this is happening.
Yeah.
And somewhere, somehow, when those three are interconnected,
Things
It-
happen.
things happen.
Things happen.
Things
yeah.
literally happen. So he was telling me he was going through a tough time when he was building, and within this tough period, he was like, okay, you know what? It's fine. I'm gonna do this thing. Like it's happening. And the next
commit.
day,
You
he
commit to it,
got a job interview at one of the
Yeah.
biggest companies
There
here.
is no one that's done a great thing that's just kind of played it by the books or followed the normal way of doing things. They've always bet on something greater that the average person would not bet on.
Yeah.
The average person would not leave their mortgage, their stable job, their
That too,
family,
for
their
real.
car, their everything. To
Did your
just,
parents think you're crazy?
oh, they thought I had lost it. Oh my gosh. I think they were this close to actually referring me to a therapist.
Yeah, I think my parents are in between
you know.
almost having an intervention.
Yeah. And eventually they'll look back and they'll be like, do you know what, well done? Because most people don't, it takes a specific kind of person to be a founder, to be a creator, very specific, and most people don't get it. And I did not know that when I first became a founder. So I used to go around telling people, I want to do this and do this. People used to look at me like I was crazy, right? But now I get it. It's because not everyone kind of has that itch. Most people are comfortable just getting by,
Yeah.
earning their salaries, buying more, getting houses, buying cars, etc.
Yeah.
And in the UK, the system is so comfortable. It's free healthcare. It's free education. It's a pension without you lifting a finger. You're almost guaranteed to live until 90 below a certain wage level. That's guaranteed. If you want to cross that threshold, you need to start taking risks, actual risks, right? So I decided to bet on myself.
Yeah,
Who else are you going to bet on, if not yourself?
literally.
I said, I'm going to figure it out. I don't know how I'm going to figure it out. I don't know what's going to look
Day
like.
one of landing.
You know?
Boom. We
Day-
have runway.
Day one of landing, it was, you need to be in the US in 6 weeks. I was like, yo, I thought I was going to be on a holiday. I actually wanted to take a break for 3 months. I had
Yeah.
actually mentally said, when I get to Kenya, I'm going to have a break for 3 months.
Yeah.
But day one of landing, it was, you're on an accelerator program, not just
Yeah.
any one of the
An
biggest
program.
accelerator programs, everywhere. So that was crazy. But then I was like, these are the problems I prayed for, so I shouldn't really complain.
No.
And you keep moving. And
You
I
keep
think that
moving.
stagnating is also another thing that I hate. When you start to stagnate in your career, that's your body telling you need.
I think that's literally why I met you the day I quit my job.
Oh yes! Oh my god, I remember that. I remember that. Like,
And
Michelle,
it was
I
the
left.
right crowd because
Yeah.
everyone was saying congratulations and you're gonna be fine and so validating, which is comparatively to another crowd. If I was going to and say, hey, I just took my job to pursue entrepreneurship, different kind of reception. So it's really interesting, and I think it's been a journey in
You
itself.
turn that
but-
page and you keep moving.
Because it felt like you felt like that when you said the itch. I feel I was feeling the itch too. It's like, what's going on here? Like, there's a focus on B2B, and what I'm doing is more
Yeah.
B2C. My career is feeling stagnant. I'm not making progress. I'm making an impact in one company, kind of doing more So yeah, that's sort of where my itch
Absolutely.
came
And most people, I actually noticed, actually most people have an itch, but they suppress it.
from. Yeah.
And it gets suppressed by kids. It gets suppressed by marriages. Yes, I said it.
Yeah, kids
Weddings,
number one.
Kids, weddings, you know, it gets suppressed.
Two things.
So you have to just sometimes just sideline. Mine was almost about to be suppressed. I was comfortable. I had a house. It was in a relationship. Next step was marriage. I was about to do the whole, 5-bedroom, white picket fence, Range Rover outside. Then I was like, this itches. No, it's okay. Like, let me just try something. And if it fails, it's okay. Yeah. I can always go back.
You chose the itch over
I chose
the
the
stability.
itch. I chose it, yeah.
Do you have any regrets for doing that?
I actually do not have any regrets. It is hard doing what I do. And most of the hard is internal. It's not actually external. The tasks I do are not mentally challenging. It's having to push myself all the time. Like, your brain
You're
has
not
to
just
be...
doing this one task and it's off. It's your every single day, including weekends.
Oh, weekends are even the busiest because your customers are not working, which means you need to get your stuff, you need to get your life in line for Monday to then kick off again. And it is a mental battle, not having a manager to check you, not having, you can just wake up and do whatever you
being
feel
your
like.
own accountability person is one of the biggest challenges too.
It's so hard.
Because you naturally, as a human being, you're going through ebbs and flows, even in your person. Now, as a woman, if we add that into there,
sis.
your cycles are always. So there's a week where you're
on
your
it,
game, you're top notch,
and then other weeks,
there's another week
Netflix
where you're kind of
and cake.
I'm
about to get some cake on my way out.
This time you just want to sit and cry and just be a girl. But every single day you have to show up, even if it's 3 hours of a bad day or 1 hour,
even if it's half an hour,
even if you're
showing up looks different. I posted this on my Instagram story, and it was like a glass, and some days you show up here, and other days you show up kind of half, but other days it's down there. Well. But that's showing up
and being comfortable with knowing that. I think just to give my take on this is like being okay with knowing that as a human being I'm going to go through cycles. And this week I've tried it, but this week is just not doing. So now that I know I'm mentally at a lower level, how can I still work around that, knowing like maybe instead of sprints of working, it's like, okay, 1 hour here, 2 hours here, maybe if not today, the weekend. So I would
giving
say
myself grace has been one of the biggest challenges I've had to have, because I'm so used to having a tick box, which means all my tasks are laid out for me. Get into this, do this, achieve that. But now I have to set my own goals and I have to push them. And I don't know what the outcome is going to be. There's no one telling me, Michelle, if you continue, so for example, I wanted to become a chartered engineer. So we were literally given a checklist, which means if I did all these things, I know I would get my award. And now as an entrepreneur, I can do all these things. I might not get anything. Chances are I'm going to get nothing. There's no gain. There's no validation. There's not even my customers will be like, here, take my money. There's none. It's you try, you test, you try, you test. And that mental fortitude, I say, is what makes you a normal entrepreneur to an exceptional. It's your ability to be very uncomfortable and withstand being uncomfortable, like always just on the edge, always wanting a little bit more, always thinking, how can I do this a little bit better, and knowing that it's never going to switch off, because that is what's going to make you great.
This is not the end. Like it's a lifetime commitment that
it's lifetime. I realized I will never scratch my itch. I thought I could scratch it.
I don't think
I got even itchier. I was like, I don't want to hit 10,000 MRR. I want to hit 100,000. I want to hit 1 million in a year. I want to become a this. I want to, your goals get more audacious, but then so does your confidence, and then so does your experience to execute them. So you become better once you hit them. So when I started Dark, 8 months later, I can honestly say the biggest lesson is I will never scratch my itch, but that's what's going to hopefully keep me going and put me up there with the greats, because that's always been.
That is, I mean, as an entrepreneur, you need bigger itches. And I mean, as you've said, just to wrap up this conversation, one, where do you see Dark Analytics going moving forward?
Yeah, so at Duck, I don't think I actually said what we do.
Yeah, you said briefly, but you can.
So at Duck, what we do is we essentially bridge the data gap between FMCG brands and retailers. And what we saw was FMCG brands, once they give the retailers their goods, they have a blind spot as to how well they're performing in modern trade, right? And we've seen this problem be solved for general trade with Masoko, with Market Force, etc. But supermarkets have not yet been touched. And this is an area where they want to sell more in because it's stable income for them, right?
Yeah.
But they don't know when they're in or out of stock, right? One thing I noticed when I came to Kenya and I was like shopping in supermarkets was, why is there so many sales reps like walking around? Why is there so many merchandisers walking around? You don't get that in the UK or the US, and it's because they're collecting data on what is actually physically on the shelf. Like they literally write down, I put this on the shelf, 5 have sold, 10 are left, right? And that's a very manual way of doing things. You can only have so many sales reps and so many merchandisers. So you can imagine how many blind spots you have in a day.
Yeah.
Quickmart has 60 shops, Naivas has 110, Chandarana has another 50, right? As a brand, I'm stretched thin. I can only see what I'm selling depending on how many sales reps I hire, which is expensive. So we decided to solve this with software. Plug into supermarkets and give brands an idea of how well they're doing in supermarkets, number one. Give brands an idea of what's in and out of stock, which sounds really stupid, but this is a major problem.
It is.
They lose a ton of money just by not being on the shelves because that is sales that are not happening. And then also another point which has not yet been put in the market is, you know, your customer loyalty cards.
Mm-hmm.
So yes. I know Alice shops every Tuesday to the Tuesday at Quickmart, and she always buys this specific brand. She always buys a Tanqueray, let's say, right? Tanqueray would not know that. That sits within the supermarket. They have not yet given that access to brands. So we are actually giving access to brands to know who are their regular customers, who are their new customers, what are their untapped customer segments,
what are their habits?
How can they take their marketing plan, let's say, and apply data to be more specific and target the right people or target people that they never have before. If I was to launch a new Tanqueray flavor using customer loyalty data, I know who I'm targeting. It might be Kenyan females between the ages of 25 to 27 who shop on a Wednesday because their basket size is larger on a Wednesday. And that's how granular we can get with the data.
And you know what, where I used to work, one of his core principles, David Manuel, is data is king. And I think a lot of people think that because, especially in the FMCG space, there's a lot of moving parts involved. And surely there's a lot of things that you're missing in the process.
Yeah.
Especially in a country that has corruption allegations. I think this is a very good way for people to be able to track and save a lot of money and time. You've answered the question of what Duck does. Where do you guys see yourselves going?
We see ourselves as a data integrator. So we want to be able to plug into any point of sale system, whether it's banking and financial services, whether it's, let's say, apparel and clothing. We want to be an integrator. So as a brand, if I'm selling something, I have access to all of my outlets, right? And this is a step further than your typical kind of POS system who can only show you what you sell on their platform. Yes. So we want to be like a third party to them. And we see a lot of value in it, even just kind of doing what we do every day. Being able to see the impact that your startup has to your customer is unmatched. It's amazing. It is literally the best feeling ever. So for us, we essentially want to transform how kind of data is used in the FMCG space, retail space, and then also expand that to other sectors as well.
Okay. And if you had any piece of advice to give to anyone or entrepreneurs or women, what advice do you have?
Follow your itch. Follow that itch. Absolutely follow that itch. I think one of the best things you will ever do in this life is to bet on yourself, bet on your ability to learn, to pivot, to endure hardship. And it will pay off, and it does take time. So bet on yourself and also be patient. Because it's not quick. It's not, it's not instantaneous. It's not instant. It will take months and months. You go to the gym, you won't see the results. As a gym babe, I can attest to this. Took me 3 years.
Took me about
to do one pull-up.
1.5 years. I'm on my second one.
We love
and
that
I
for you.
can-
1.5 years. She's twice faster than I have. Listen, if you are a gym goer or if you have committed to anything in your life, you know these things take time. So be patient with yourself, but also better yourself. Yeah.
I love that. Guys, I think this has been such an insightful episode, and maybe you can let us, audience, know where they can interact or engage with yourself and Dark Analytics as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can add me, connect with me on LinkedIn, Michelle Watiki. You can also follow my TikTok, Shell Charity, my Instagram, Shell Charity. I post a lot, so I'm building in public, I think people call it.
Yeah.
So you will see my ups, my downs, my lefts, my rights. But follow me across my social media platforms to find out more about what I'm doing as well.
Amazing. And in the same breath, make sure you're following My Story Africa on all the major platforms. Subscribe if you've reached this far into the episode and you haven't already. We will be taking a break from the Tanqueray After Hours session, but we will still be up and running on the My Story Africa platform. You know us, every Wednesday, Friday, anytime you're looking for extra content to feel inspired within the tech space, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're an enabler, or just want to be inspired, then you can check out My Story Africa on all the major platforms. I have been Alice Kanjaja, your lovely host, and I shall see you in the next one. Bye.